All right, so this screencast is to go over question D. A drop in credit card fees causes people to use credit cards more often for transactions and demand less money. So this is very similar to some of the examples that we gave you in the starter practice handout, just to get your minds thinking about the demand for money. So in part A, we're going to draw a graph. It says, using a correctly labeled graph of the money market, show how the nominal interest rate will be affected. Now, for the 2020 exam, in light of the changes, you wouldn't have to draw this graph, but you might have to do this same type of question, draw a graph on scrap paper, and then just explain how the nominal interest rate would be affected. So for part A, you should have a graph that looks something along the lines of this. There's one little problem with this graph here, and that we don't have the equilibrium labeled on these two, and then we're missing the quantity of money over here. But for your purposes of, did I do what I needed to do correctly, the demand for money should be shifting to the left, and you would have that new nominal interest rate. And I always suggest to do a little caption over here on the side, just so that your reader knows what you're intending. For part B, given the interest rate change in part A, what will happen to bond prices in the short run? Well, when we do this question in class, a lot of students think, I have no idea what would happen with bond prices, because chapter 34 was so obscenely dense that they missed this little detail. So I'm going to bring you to a little slideshow that I would be using in class. First of all, what you should know is that the relationship between bond prices and interest rates is that they're inversely related. Okay, so the biggest thing to understand is this principle alone. It's a little bit difficult to understand why. So this is why I tend to just say, commit this concept to memory right here, that the relationship between interest rates and bond prices is inverse. That as interest rates decline, bond prices will go up, and the opposite. It has to do with the fact that interest rates can change and bonds are comparable in worth year after year. Page 750 in your textbook goes over this principle. So I'm on the ebook copy right now, 750. You should see a blue heading that says interest rates and bond prices, and it's a really short piece of text. And if you want to, you can just pause the video right now and you can read this piece from the book. If not, we're going to head back to the question. The question says, what will happen to bond prices in the short run? Well, you don't have to explain anything. So if you really forget that they're inversely related, you could always just remember that you have a 50-50 shot right now of getting the question correct. So if nominal interest rates were to fall, then in part B, we're going to be looking at bond prices are increasing. Part C, given the interest rate change in part A, what will happen to the price level in the short run? Explain. So if interest rates fall, that means that consumption, consumer spending, and business investment are going to increase, because those are interest-sensitive consumption spending categories. Households and businesses will spend more money if interest rates decline, because they're going to borrow money. So here's my explanation. It says price level will increase due to increased aggregate demand. Aggregate demand increases due to greater interest-sensitive consumption that resulted from lower interest rates. Again, think about how these interest rates are going to impact the aggregate demand, aggregate supply graph, and you're going to have to do those long-term impacts, not just on this graph, but how it's going to impact other graphs. And that's what we had to do in part C. Part D, identify an open market operation that the Federal Reserve could use to keep the nominal interest rate constant at the level that existed before the drop in credit card fees. So this is a little bit difficult to do on a document that I'm not typing on, but I think I can give it a try. If we want the interest rates to stay here, but we're now on this demand for money, you have to get the interest rate back. Oops, that's pretty tough to do freehand, but I gave it my best shot. You have to get the interest rate back to where it was beforehand. So in order to do that, I would need the money supply line to be over here. So in order to get it to shift to the left and make the money supply smaller, I would have to have the Federal Reserve sell bonds in order to make this happen. right? So to sell bonds, in my drawing tools, oh, they're there. So we would sell the bonds to tighten the money supply and bring nominal interest rates back to their original level. And that's question D.